your name is Rick Salmeron, and you are a certified financial planner. What does a certified financial planner do?
Wow, lots of things. However, in short, my version of the definition is helping individuals make smarter decisions with their money. So,
Absolutely.
so they can put their money in the right places. So it's headed in the direction for their future to make their life better, not somebody else's, their life better. It's very important.
That is very important. We touch on that quite a bit on this show. My wife and I, so I'm a stay-at-home dad, and so
All
we
right.
only have one income, my wife's income. Now she does have two jobs, and I help out at her second job. We call that our side gig. But
Mhm.
so in our lives, inflation and all that stuff, it comes into play more than it does for a two income household because as inflation goes up, we are on a limited budget. And you've been beating that drum for a couple of years. I just checked out your YouTube channel, and you were on Bloomberg TV a couple of years ago talking about inflation and wages not keeping up with that inflation.
Yeah.
And that's pretty interesting that I put like not really an advertisement, but a call for guests out on Facebook, and you had responded. And I checked out your YouTube, I was like, yes, this guy is great for the channel. And I just wanted to get your opinion on that was a couple years ago that you were on Bloomberg,
Yeah.
and do you see wages keeping up with inflation in the last 2 years?
I think that they've kept somewhat pace from what I can see. Inflation's been really hard. Now, mind you, I won't say that wages spiked up to 9% suddenly like inflation did, right? However, employers, generally speaking, know that their employees depend on the salary that they earn at their company. And they're not blind. They're not living in a vacuum. They get it themselves because they're going to the store also. They're having to fill up their car also. They see prices go up for themselves and they recognize if they care and if they enjoy and have great, fantastic employees, they want to provide for those employees. So that does mean that their business, I'm speaking from an employer standpoint, their business, as it grows, its revenue grows, it recognizes and realizes that the great employees that are working with my company, I'm talking as the business owner, are very vital to the success of my company. Therefore, it's in my best interest as the business owner to make sure that my employees are taken care of and that they feel like they're taken care of. So when you're working for a really great company that's looking after its employees, they see what's going on and they recognize how important it is to keep wages pace with inflation because they want to keep their great employees with them, right? So
Right.
now I would say not every employee is that way. Not every employer is that way. And I understand that and I get that. Most most should be, but if you're working for a place where the employer is just really not looking after you, maybe it's time to start looking for a change. But that's my 101 on inflation and wages and speaking to those people who are working at a place where they feel like they're taken care of, they feel like my boss is really looking after me. That's a very good position to be in, and that's
Yeah.
a very good thing to be at.
Where we're located, off the air, I had told you we're located about an hour north of Kansas City, and our little community here, it's a population of roughly 75,000, give or take. And then we have small little towns surrounding our city. But the thing was during, the COVID lockdowns and all that, our little community was kind of insulated here. We had local grocery stores that were reaching outside of their supply chains. We had, small little mom and pop restaurants that were also willing to step outside of those supply chain issues and get local stuff. We had farmers coming in and donating. We had all kinds of stuff that was keeping our little community here kind of insulated from those issues. And what that created was it still hit us, but it was more slow over time. And then it felt like within the last 12 months, it's certainly just come hard on us, and we're feeling inflation really bad here. And I
Mm,
think most places, most employers are aware of those things and are trying to
mhm,
offset those costs a little bit. But I
mhm,
think I was reading on an article one time, and now this has been a month or two ago, that 58% of paychecks were keeping up with inflation. But that to me speaks to a wider problem of 42% are not.
mhm,
And that I don't know what necessarily we can do to fix that. I mean, if it's a 42% person problem or 42% of people problem, then, we can't just step outside and look for other jobs or take other jobs, especially in a community like ours where it is a small, large employers are few and far between here. So,
yeah, mhm. Yeah, it's
what
not
is your suggestion for something
there.
like that?
There are not easy answers. When things get tough, then many times there are not a lot of easy answers that are right in front of us, right? I like to say that when disruption happens, like inflation could be seen as a mini disruption because we haven't experienced that in our country in quite a long time until recently. When disruptions happen, though, we as people, we find ways. We it's an opportunity to better ourselves somehow. So if I'm working in a position that my salary, I'm not getting a raise at all, that my employers, they just can't afford it, or whatever, then what can I do as a person to help supplement income? Because I'm not going to find that from my job.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what my wife and I we call our her second job our side hustle
Yeah.
because I help out with it. Now it's only a couple hours each day,
Yeah.
but
Mhm.
it pays pretty well. So,
Yeah. Okay. So there's an example of, well, when inflation hits, and I know my employer is not going to give me a raise that's equivalent to the inflation, if at all, then had that event not happened, I wouldn't have been in a position or forced to find an additional solution,
right.
additional supplement of an income, right? I would have remained in my comfort zone. I'm not saying this is right or wrong. It's just when disruption happens, my point is
We can
that
lead that
gets
to
us.
opportunity.
That's right. There's an opportunity there. It doesn't feel good at the moment. I get
Right.
that, but it's because of that feeling that gets us motivated, and the momentum builds when we're really eager to find what the solution is. There are thousands of solutions that are out there that we're unable to see in our current state, but when we get rattled, that puts us in a position where we're putting on a different set of binoculars, finding something else that's already
Right.
out there, and lo and behold, there it is. There's another possible solution for us. So,
I see in 2024 now, now this is all just my opinion. I see in
mhm,
2024 it's a lot easier to start a business these days, or just take an idea and create a business or a monetized opportunity for that idea.
mhm,
In my opinion, it's never been easier.
yeah,
And that
mhm,
speaks to your point when things happen and disruptions happen,
yeah.
it is kind of on us to seek out those opportunities. We can either do nothing and live with the situation that has been created for us, or we can stand up and we can make changes or improvements and thrive in these moments.
That's an excellent point. That's an excellent point. Which brings me to this also. When the pandemic happened in 2020, see, I'm saying we as people in the United States of America, perhaps also in the world, however, in the USA, we can't help ourselves. We're entrepreneurial by nature. In 2020, when the pandemic hit, I read somewhere that something like in that very brief period of time of the March and April of 2020, something around 15,000 new businesses were created.
Yeah, we
So,
created ours in 2023.
okay,
So
there
we're
you
not
go.
we're not
There you go.
profitable by any means. Like this is media production is really all we're doing right now at this point, and we're not
Hmm.
monetized yet, but it's a slow build. And
Hmm.
we are willing to we are willing to take that make that sacrifice just to have the uh financial protections for our own personal assets. So
Yeah,
I can build away from like nobody could take my house, for instance, you know. And that's originally the idea behind my business, but then I got all kinds of ideas. I was like, well, let's put this into action and see where it goes.
yeah, yeah. That's what happens when we're put in a position that it's like jettison fuel coming from the outside that we don't know where from. That gets us motivated. It puts a spark into us. And when that spark happens, then we take action and we find ways to do things that we felt like we couldn't before.
Right.
It
Have you
sucks
seen
on
a
the surface, but it's really great in the end.
Absolutely. I told my son, as because he's 20 years old now, and he's trying to prepare and trying to be um, financially responsible for his future. And I'm trying to teach him some lessons here. And I said, right now we're coming out of a recession, and that things are still kind of bad. You know, inflation's high and everything. You got to take advantage of this because you're growing up in a time where you're having to keep that belt tightened. Well, you know, you can ride that wave up, you know, because
Mhm.
and that's essentially what I did in 2008. I didn't now I'm still middle class. No, I don't have any assets really to speak of. We have a low very low net worth. But the things that I did was we saved money here and there. We started bulk shopping. We started no car payments kind of deal. And when times were rough, we just continued that kind of thinking when times weren't rough. And
Mhm.
so we always came out ahead. We ride
Mhm.
that wave up. And
Mhm.
I tell my son that, you know, just keep that in mind. Like things are tough right now, but they're not always going to be that way. And if you
Mhm.
just get in this mindset now, you
Mhm.
won't have to worry about anything.
Mhm. I would also encourage your son, and you probably have done this already, that frankly, the key as a financial advisor, I speak to this to my clients all day long. The key, not a key, but the key to financial success, financial independence, whatever that means to you, has very little to do with investment selection, Ricky. It has almost everything to do with behavior, the actions that we take or the actions that
Absolutely.
we don't take
I
will add
100%
up
agree.
to the results that we have in life. Okay. It's like it's like they're like grains of sand, as I see. We have a choice with grains of sand to either build a beautiful, amazing sandcastle or a very boring, dull mound. One of the two. Yeah, I would like to think that a lot of people feel like, well, I can become financially independent when I win the lottery or when I score on that big XYZ investment or something that, or this inheritance from great great grandpa or something, these exterior life events that will probably never happen. And since they're never going to happen, what else are we left with? We're left with what we do day in and day out,
Right.
right? It's everything else in between. So these small actions, these small activities that we do or that we avoid, they add up to the results that we have in our pocketbook, in our purse, in our wallet, in our net worth. And if we're happy with the results that we have, the actions that we take are not right or wrong. Yet when we take a look at the results that we have in our life, and if we're happy with our results, then that gives us a sign that we're on target. We're doing the things that we should be doing. If, on the other hand, we're not all that pleased with the results, we would like something more or better or different in our life, then that's a trigger to say, I need to be changing my habits then one way, regardless whatever the environment is, I need to be doing something different because what we're doing, where we're at today, Ricky, is thanks to the the seeds that we planted, the actions that we took 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Okay. And those actions that we're taking today, those are also seeds that are planting. We don't know when they're going to germinate necessarily, but they will germinate, and we'll see the fruits of that labor in a matter of a year, 2, 3, 5, 10 years time. So if we just focus on those daily habits, the daily actions, that's really what we can control.
Right. I think a lot of people call that like a money mindset. Um, just getting in a groove where you feel comfortable and working towards that. Don't live outside your means. And by all means, we don't have to not have the things that we like to have. We just have to remember the grass is greener where we water it.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So
100%.
do you have kids?
I've got two grown children. Yes. Two
How
grown
old are
children,
they?
25 and 23. I'm very, very
Awesome.
proud of them. I'm a very proud dad. They're amazing people. I'm so grateful for my children, where they're at in their life. I couldn't be more proud of them. And that really makes me, and I know that you're a dad too. And that
Yes.
makes that I trust that you speak the same way with your kids also, but that makes the light really glow in the heart of a father, does it not?
Oh, absolutely. I try to speak that way with my kids without trying to make their heads too big,
That's
because
right.
if so, with the way my kids operate, if you give them too much praise, sometimes they take that and stop working forward. And so I try to give them a little balance of both criticism and praise, and I try to impress upon them that no matter what happens, I'm always proud of them. And I always strive not for their success, but for their happiness. And
Yeah,
in my opinion, if they're happy, they are successful, or at their very least, that will translate into a success that they can manage on their
yeah,
own.
yeah. I remember when my kids were very, very small. It's funny, you can probably relate to this as well as many of your listeners. The boundaries that we put as a parent on our children are so narrow when they're so young, of course,
Yeah.
because they're just newborns or they're 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 years old. And now, like I said, my children are in their mid to early 20s. Do I do I still act as a father? Well, certainly not like I used to.
Right.
However, there will always be that little. I don't consider myself a helicopter parent what at all. In fact, quite the opposite. And I feel like that's been an ingredient that's proved to be very successful. That's another topic for another day, perhaps. However, these boundaries that I once were so narrow when they were small tots, they're really not there anymore. Yet
Yeah.
there's always going to be that voice of, gosh, if I do see something, and I can't help myself, gotta say something, right?
Yeah, I tell
Kind
my
of
wife
hard.
all the time, you see something, say something. And I don't it's not like and I always explain to my kids. So we've actually got a range of ages here. So my oldest is 21 and my youngest is 5. So we've got a range of ages. And so the way I've taught my older children versus the way I've taught my younger children is two different things. I was a different guy, and we
Yeah.
came from different we had different socioeconomic status.
Hmm.
There is a lot, they're all different kids. And so my two older children, we have one that's 21 and one that's 20, and then our youngest kids are 5 and will be 15 in October. And they're all different, man. I
Hmm.
can't the what you said about raising little ones is it resonated with me because the way I raised my 20-year-old son versus the way I raised my 5-year-old son
Hmm.
is night and day difference, and they are just they're I mean, they are very similar, but they're the way I raised them is two different way. And my younger son is quite a bit more independent than my older children. It's
So
wild.
I know that I'm not the host of this show. However, I got to ask you, having a 21, 20-year-old with your 5-year-old, do you feel like your dad uh, Dad the sequel this time around, or is it the same type of parenting style? I'm just curious.
I actually feels more like a grandparent type of a relationship with my youngest. I actually have a grandbaby now. My oldest, my daughter, she had a beautiful baby boy
Mm,
a few months ago, and
congrats.
I'm a peepaw, and I'm very proud of that. And I'm only 39. And a
Mm,
lot of people my age, maybe a few years older, they're, oh, I'm too young to be a grandparent. I love it. I can't wait until the little guy's a little older so I can take him around to do things with me. I'm not comfortable with infants that aren't mine taking him around, you know. But I think when he's 2, 3, 4, you know, in the infant stages, he'll be just a blast because I'll be much more experienced. I'll have that much more patience. But that's the biggest difference is the patience that I have with my youngest
mm,
son
mm,
versus my older children.
mm,
At the time, I was quite a bit younger with my younger kids, and like my daughter, there's 18 years or 17 years difference between her and I, and my 20-year-old son, there's 18 years difference between him and I. So I we were kind of growing up at the same time, and so the
mm,
patience, there is a lot of patience there that
mm,
I have with my 5-year-old that I didn't have with my older children, and
mm,
because the socioeconomic there differences in socioeconomics from when my son and daughter were younger versus my younger sons is it's like night and day. When we first got pregnant with my 5-year-old, my wife came out to my garage and she said, "Oh my goodness, I'm pregnant." And I was like, "Well, that's great, you know." And I was trying to gauge how she was feeling. And she's like, "Oh no, like how are we going to afford the baby and this, that, and the other thing?" I said, "Look, honey, 100 years ago, or 100 years ago, 10 years ago, $100 was hard to come by. But today, $100 is quite a bit different. We have the money to, we were barely scraping by with our younger or our older children. And so it's quite a bit different now where we can afford the formula, we can afford the diapers. It's the luxury things that we may not be able to obtain. And so far we've been doing okay, but
mm,
we do value things quite a bit differently than other folks. Like I've got a 20-year-old car sitting in the driveway. It's got leaks, you know, and we have no air conditioning in it. It's just that kind of thing isn't very important to me because it's a depreciating asset.
Yeah. So when you were describing that story about, honey, I'm pregnant, and oh, great, wonderful, congratulations. How are we going to afford this? What came to my mind then was, I don't consider that a moment of disruption, although that's a moment of change, significant
Yeah,
change. And of course, it's natural for a person to say, how are we going to afford this? This is a new life event. It's a new shock. And the answer is, we'll figure it out. We'll find a way.
that is absolutely the
There are a
answer.
thousand solutions out there.
I tell
And
that to young people all the time, and not just my kids, but all young kids, young people. Like, don't wait to have kids. If you want to have kids, don't wait. Because if you're waiting until you can afford it, you'll never be able to afford it. I tell
wait to
people that
be,
all the time.
let me just wait so I can get this parenting thing down pat before we have a child. That's not the way it works. That's not how it should work. It's like, do it and then I'll figure it out. Do it, then I'll get ready. Because if you really realized, tell me if this rings any memory bells. If I really knew what it was going to take to raise a child, I probably would have been too scared and said, no, I don't want to do this.
Oh
Right.
yeah. Oh yeah.
But
It's
thank
definitely not
goodness,
for the weak of heart.
not for the weak of heart. Thank goodness I didn't know that in advance, because I do have two kids and I do have two magnificent children, and I would not want anything to get in the way of that experience that I've had.
Yeah, so I've been a stay-at-home dad for 10 years now, and
Mhm, mhm,
it's the most rewarding job that I've ever had.
mhm,
Um, I don't I don't get paid for my job in a sense of money, but when I get to wake up every day to my little one, you know, and he's always in a good mood when he wakes up, and that just warms my heart. And to wake up every day and not have, like, of course I do have a schedule and an agenda and everything, but I work at my own pace. My happiness comes above financial in my
Hmm.
life now, and that's only because I have a godsend of a wife that is able to take that burden off of me so I can take the burdens off of her that she doesn't want to deal with.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
and it really is a partnership here like no other. I've never actually seen the dynamics that we have in our home that other people have, and um, I've never actually seen the dynamics outside of our house that we have.
That's
My
great.
wife is just amazing. She gets up and goes to work every day, and she's burnt out and tired, just like I am. She hasn't had a vacation in 2 years. I haven't had a vacation in a couple of years, but we do this not because we do it because it makes us happy in another sense of we feel fulfilled. We are able to uh, have that independence that we weren't able to have when both of us were working. And
Hmm.
it was kind of like we were talking earlier about financial circumstances and when things happen. What happened was I lost my job and I was on the road quite a bit. And this was 10 years ago. And I had I'd gotten fired. I was making like 18 bucks an hour, which at the time was great money. We had just bought a brand new car, like 6 months prior to me losing my job, and the payment on it was like 600 bucks a month. And from the time I got fired to now, we just started making better financial decisions, and we are much better off financially now than we were 10 years ago when I lost my job, and we were still making, doing the paycheck to paycheck kind of thing.
Hmm.
And we were still doing that 10 years ago. It's just like now it's different. We are able to afford the things that we need now versus
Hmm.
not being able to back then. So,
Sometimes, sometimes those disruptive moments happen. They're out of our control, yet the universe makes that happen, and we don't see what the benefit is at the moment. In fact, all we can see is this is a terrible thing. I lost my job. I got fired, whatever the case might be. What good is there in this? And now, as you describe your story, fast forward 10 years later, had that moment in time not happened, if that and that did not occur, you would not be as happy as you are today. You would not
absolutely.
have the setup that you have today. You're not only did you survive, I would argue that you have somewhat thrived.
Oh, yeah. We were in a rental apartment. It
Yeah.
was a duplex.
Hmm.
It was 2 bedroom. We were miserable. We didn't have, as the old saying goes, we didn't have a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of.
Yeah.
And
Who wants
we
to live
put
that way?
right. We just in a spot where, financially we weren't able to maintain a way of life that was very quality at all. We were just living to work,
Yeah.
and our kids were miserable. They all missed us, and so I made the decision. I told my wife, since I was on the road all the time, I was like, I'd just like to take a break and stay home for a little while. And then it became to the point where um, I was looking for jobs and not getting any calls back because I was what they call unemployable. I'd been not working for so long that nobody wanted to take that chance. And so I was like, well, it's going to cost us way too much money to start childcare. What do we do? And my wife's like, well, I got an idea. Let me go back to school and I'll continue down my career path. You stay home with the kids. And I said, deal. So
Mhm.
that's what originally we didn't plan for it to be like a permanent thing. But then 5 years ago we had a baby, and I was working at that time at a call center, and I was making pretty decent money. But then my wife got to a point where she's like, I can't handle this by myself. I need you to come back home. And I was like, well, I was ready to quit anyway. So we ended up doing that, and it just brought all kinds of happiness and time. It
Yeah,
really brought a
good.
lot of time to our lives. Now, we don't have a lot of time to spend outside of the family, but we're able to concentrate on each other quite a bit more than we were in the past.
I do believe that everyone has their own definition of wealth, whatever that is. I'm wealthy because I'm making X dollars a year, or my net worth is X dollars, or something like that. And that may work for some people. At the same time, I truly believe that the wealthy people are those who have control of their time.
Yeah,
And
I
when you've got
absolutely agree.
control of your time, I mean, time is one of the most valuable, if not the most valuable asset that we have. We can make money again. We can make more money later. I'm not saying anything brilliant when I say that we don't make more time, because that is really ultimately one of the most valuable assets that we have. So when you're in control of your time and you can dictate your schedule, gosh, that's a level of wealth that's very unique.
Yeah, I agree. And so, what is the name of your? You're the founder of your own company, right?
Yes, Salmeron Financial is my company. Started in 2001. I've been around the block.
Wow,
And
that's wow! Congratulations.
thank you. I started in the business in 1990, and I was working for other firms for 11 years. And then I put a flag in the ground and I said, I'm starting my own thing in 2001. And that's exactly what I've done. Very
That's
proud of what
awesome.
I've built so far. Mm-hmm.
So, is there so what when you go on vacation, right? I imagine a financial planner, when you go on vacation, you probably go to some pretty cool spots, but they're pretty reasonably priced. What's your favorite places to go?
Oh man, favorite places to go. Let's see. I have been to, in the last year or so, I've been to England. I've been to Dubai. I have been to Florida. I've been to California. I am going to Italy later this summer.
Wow.
So I do a lot of traveling. I do a lot of traveling.
That's what
And
we love to travel.
I'm fortunate that I have a business where I really don't feel like I'm tied down to the office, right? So when I'm in London, or when I'm in Dubai, or when I'm in Florida, or when I'm in California, or when I'm here in my home base in Dallas, I'm still connected with my business. I still am connected with my clients. And I don't feel like it's I got to bring work with me. I don't feel that way. That's not
Yeah,
the attitude, that's not the vibe that I'm feeling, because I also enjoy what I do, and the value that I add to my clients' lives is such a turn on for me. And I know that they love it, because that's why they have Rick in their life. It's really a tremendous situation and a tremendous relationship. So I really don't, I love the fact that I can do what I do anywhere in the world. Give me a Wi-Fi connection, an internet connection, and I'm good to go.
absolutely.
I'm very
Absolutely.
grateful for what I've built and what I have going on right now. Very grateful for it.
My wife and I, when we talk about going on vacations and stuff, we do talk about doing the podcast from remote locations where we're going, and having
Yeah.
possibly like a traveling podcast or something like that. And
Mm-hmm.
people are sometimes asking me, well, why do you want to work when you're on vacation? Because this is, at this point, this is a full-time job now. And I tell them, like, it's not really work to me.
Yeah.
It's not.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy this. This to me. I have really bad anxiety. Like setting up that post and everything and responding back to those responses.
Oh.
It's extremely anxiety inducing, and
Oh.
just dealing with that kind of stuff and the certain level of mental toughness that it takes to do that kind of stuff, and the the rush that I get out of it. That's what I do it for. And so the anxiety that it induces, I kind of get something out of that, and it makes me push forward faster, harder. Let's see how far we can take this thing. And it's ultimately it's relaxing to me because, after dealing with children all day, it's kind of like an escape. So,
Yeah, I can see
no,
that.
so
Hmm.
you said you started in '01. You founded your company in '01. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, that would put your children pretty young when you started that, right?
Yes, yes. My daughter was not even 1 year old, and my son was maybe two, so they were very young.
What was that like? Was it a blessing or a curse to have uh be was it a blessing or a curse to start out like that with two little ones through was it scary? Was it intimidating? No, you got to bring in that money, you got to have that paycheck, otherwise, you got no food on the table. Was that a factor?
Fortunately, I was in a dual income situation. Mom and dad were working, me being dad and mom having her own career also. By far, scary, yes. Fearful, yes. Anxiety, yes. New parent again. I'm starting my own company. The vast possible unknowns in the black box of what's going to happen now were full. Many, many of them. I had no idea what was going to happen. I just knew that I believed in myself. I believed that I had the abilities and the skills to be a great dad, to be a successful business owner. I felt like I knew what fundamentals there were, and I had no idea how I would build on those from that point forward. But you have to start somewhere, right? You have to start
Right.
somewhere, and that is just by taking the step in the direction, and then the next step, and then the next step. Going back to like habits, like I mentioned earlier, same concept can be applied to being a parent. Of course, it's good to get some education in advance of the birth, right? While you're pregnant. However, that and a business owner, there are just so many unknowns. You've never done it before. If it's the firstborn, if it's your first business that you start, I mean, a business is a birth.
Yeah.
It really is. So you're the dad to your business. You're the parent to your business.
And you
So
feel
you,
every bit of that too. When you
yeah,
sign
yeah,
those papers,
mhm,
you're like, okay, it's finally happening.
yeah. And if you
I
want to
felt
be a
that.
successful parent, you'll do what it takes. If you want to be a successful business owner, you'll do what it takes. And
Absolutely. I didn't know how easy it was to start a business. Like, so in my way of thinking long ago was like you had to have money to start a business. And really, in these days, really all you need is an idea. And
mm,
if you have a really good idea, if you can expound upon that idea and build upon it, I mean, it doesn't have to take months and months, just something small daily and
yeah.
something that you
Mm,
can build on. You can open up an LLC with very little money. I think all the paperwork and stuff that we did, we ended up messing up the paperwork, so we had to hire an attorney, $500.
yeah, a
So
couple $100. Yeah.
yeah, it
Sure,
wasn't a big deal.
there are some businesses that require more capital than others, for sure. However, for people listening to this episode, if you have the desire to own your business or start your own business, if that is a goal of yours, just bring to mind, and if you feel like you're doubtful that you can pull it off, or there's just, I'm not quite sure this is right for me, but I really want to do it, bring to mind somebody that you know or somebody that you know of who has started a very successful business. And if you have that person in mind, whether they're an acquaintance or a very good close friend, or just again someone that you're familiar with, that's the evidence that it can be done. And if they can do it, then my question is, why not you? Why not you? They were born one day, you were born one day, and we all, when we were born, day one, we all have the skills, the personal skills, the qualities to create a great life, whatever that great life is for us. And if that means being an entrepreneur, if that means being your own business owner, you've got it in you. You've got it in you. Now, you may not know how to do it, but you can do it. And the proof is because there's millions of other people who have done it also. So
Absolutely.
hopefully that is the inspiration that you can carry with you to say, yes, I can do this also.
Absolutely. So my inspiration for starting a podcast really, or starting a media business in the beginning, was because I thought I'd be good at it and it was something that I could do to pass the time. It was like a hobby per se. But then I was like, man, I could really kind of make money at this. Now like I said, we're not profitable yet, but we are getting to the point, it's like an inflection point where we're getting ready to kind of figure out where we fit in this whole podcasting scene. And in the fall, I've got big plans to start other channels. I've got more time to devote to it because my youngest son is going to school. And
Okay. Mm-hmm.
it seems like to me that when I first started the whole thing, it was originally I wanted a hobby, but now it's more of like a passion project, and I'm very happy doing it. I'm very good at it. But I had no self-confidence when I first started.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, man, what am I doing? I can't do this. Who am I fooling? And then my wife's like, just do it and you'll see if you're good at it or not. And so we started and we started producing content, just throwing it out there. I got lots of criticisms, lots of lots of feedback, positive feedback, very little negative feedback. But what we did, the negative feedback we did get, we turned a negative into a positive, and it really did turn out to be like, hey, this is making me happy. And the more I went along with it and following it where it wants to go and molding it and shaping it where I want it to go, it's going great.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I do encourage other
Mhm.
folks to get out there and explore your dreams. You know, don't feel like you're stuck somewhere. I mean, we're kind of in a rut ourselves, but we don't feel stuck. We don't feel like there's nothing that we can really work out of. You know,
Mhm.
there's nothing that we can't work out of.
Yeah, yeah. And I would also say that if you want to be really good at something, if you want to be a really good podcast host, really good podcast show, if you want a really good business, whatever, you're going to be bad at it at day one. If same here from when I opened up my own business in 2001. When I look back in my business, comparing it today to then, I mean, it's pretty bleak back in 2001. So everyone who is like really good, you're a great podcast host. I can already tell you're seasoned, you're smooth on the microphone. You've done this a few times. Everyone who's really good at something has done it a few times. And you have to come to the understanding that to be great at something, you must first be very bad at something.
Yeah.
Be very bad many times, many times, many
Practice
times. And
practice makes perfect.
that's how you practice makes perfect. And that's how you get to new levels and new heights of excellence.
I was just telling my son, my 14-year-old son, we were just talking not yesterday, but the day before. He has a bass guitar and
Mm.
he likes to play, but he doesn't remember to practice very often. And the other night he got it out at like 10 o'clock at night. I was getting ready to go to bed and I was like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I'm practicing." I said, buddy, it's 10 o'clock at night. And he's like, oh, I forgot earlier to do it. And I was like, well, do you want me to remind you? And he's like, well, yeah, I would love that. And then he just kept practicing. I was like, hold on. I said, it's time to go to bed right now. Like, let's wrap this up tonight and we'll try again tomorrow. But I told him, I was like, practice does make perfect. And I'm very proud of you for wanting to practice.
Yeah. Yeah. Always just start by being bad, and it's okay. It's
Yeah,
okay to be bad. It's really great to be bad. You want to be as bad as often as you can, because that's the direction of being great.
absolutely. Absolutely. Um, so you were talking about you've been to England recently. like what is your favorite destination that you've ever been on
Hmm.
vacation?
I don't know if I have a favorite one, frankly.
Most
Um,
memorable?
London was memorable. I had an opportunity to meet John McEnroe. It was during Wimbledon of last year, and my wife and I got to meet him. That was really cool. Um, I'm looking forward to this Italy trip. I've not been to Italy. I'm looking forward to that. I've been to South Africa a few times. Seeing the safaris there and the animals is incredible,
That's
is
cool.
amazing. But you know, great travel is fantastic outside of the country. Yet there's so many great things to see within the country too.
Yeah,
You
I've never been
probably spend
outside
the
the
rest of your
country.
life just within the United States and having an amazing experiences, amazing experiences. And that's I've really come to, I'm 59 years old and I'm really realizing I have still a long, many healthy years, God willing, of life ahead of me. Yet I appreciate every single year, the older that I get, of how valuable great experiences are.
Yeah. Yeah, I try to teach that. I try to preach that to my kids all the time. So
Yeah. Hmm.
we that's one of the reasons why we love to travel.
Yeah.
I on that Bloomberg interview you did a couple years ago,
Hmm.
we you were talking about things that you could do differently on holidays to kind of tighten the belt a little bit. And it kind of reminded me of one of the things that we do. We don't like to buy expensive gifts for Christmas or birthdays. What we like to do is instead spend money on experiences. We like to take our kids traveling. And the kids have been to Disneyland. Now, like this is just on a modest income, less than $100,000 per year, like way
Hmm.
less than $100,000 per year.
Hmm. Hmm.
We've been to Disney World, we've been to Universal Studios.
Hmm.
One of our favorite places to go is the Smoky Mountains National Park. So
Beautiful.
that is,
Hmm.
I mean, that place right there, I mean, it was very cheap
Hmm.
and it's one of the most visited places in the United States.
Hmm.
So there was lots to do.
Hmm.
Um, and that's actually, I mean, it's one of our favorite places to go. We've been to Chicago.
Hmm.
We've
Yeah.
we've been all over the place.
Hmm. Hmm.
And San Francisco,
Hmm.
there's a ton of things to do inside the United States,
Hmm.
and we would much rather give that gift than something that like a PlayStation, for instance,
Yeah.
that's going to cost
Yeah.
$500 and it's going to break
Hmm.
a year later,
Hmm.
or
Be
really
replaced by
expensive
another
toys.
version of a PlayStation upgrade and so on. Yeah. Hmm.
Exactly. Exactly.
Hmm.
And no, no, we've tried to teach that to other people. Like, hey, your kids aren't going to really appreciate these, especially if you've got a lot of kids and you're spending $3,000, $4,000 on a holiday on gifts. Those kids are going to appreciate those things, but think of the memories that you can make with that same $3,000 to $4,000 on a vacation. You know,
Hmm. Yeah.
instead of giving them that nice shiny toy that they wanted,
Hmm.
give them a ticket to a theme park or
Hmm.
like most of the places that we travel, we try to make it at least half-ass educational. We like to go to museums. That's one of my
Yes.
favorite things to
Hmm.
do.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
as long as we're doing those type of things, that's how we
Hmm.
justify being able to do vacations while the kids are supposed to be in school.
And
So
then also taking the kids to Washington, D.C. and
I've
seeing.
yes, we've not done that yet, but that's on the list. I absolutely want to do that, and I
Mhm.
think I'd like to plan that this upcoming school year as
Mhm.
maybe during the wintertime months, just get them out there because
Mhm.
there's all kinds of museums. I didn't realize there was so much to do in DC.
Oh, it's incredible. Incredible. Of course, so much history of the country as well. You'll not find anywhere else. And then other major cities like New York City, it's a world on its own,
Yeah,
right?
I've
And
drove
the
through
Nash,
there, never been there.
all the other national parks across the country are incredible and unreal. The Disney experiences are amazing too. I remember long ago, I took my daughter when she was maybe 2 years. No, I'm sorry, she was much older, but her and I just went to Los Angeles, and I took her to like Beverly Hills and the the Hollywood Walk of Fame stars and all of that. That was such a great father-daughter experience. once again, an experience, and we still have pictures of
Yeah.
that. And the PlayStation finds dust after a while, and it becomes at best a piece of archaeological discovery one year, perhaps.
Yeah.
But the pictures and the videos that you create with the family and going to special places, those last forever. Those last forever. We don't remember how much they cost, those trips. We remember the amazing relationship strengthening that builds with family and friends and others. And that is such a valuable experience. It's hard to place a price tag on it.
Exactly. It is very hard to place a price tag on it because you not only are you giving them that experience, but they're getting the experience that they're gaining is culture. They're if you go to museums and stuff like we do, like that's very educational and they're getting something out of that. Even if they're not,
Mhm,
even if you think they're not paying attention, they're
mhm,
absolutely getting something out of it.
mhm,
And
mhm.
think about like if you fly in those experiences, they're getting experiences from the fly.
Yes.
They're getting experiences from driving.
Mhm,
There's all kinds of, and the time that they're spending with you, the time that the parents and children are getting to spend together because that's very important because as children get older, especially between the ages of, let's say, 20 years old to 30, like that 10 years that we're not going to see our kids very often. It's just a
yeah.
fact of life. They've got their own
Sure.
things to do. They're
Mhm,
building their own lives.
mhm,
And I that's to be expected. So we've got to spend our time with them wisely and
mhm,
giving those experiences to them and traveling with them. Or
mhm.
even if you can't travel, there's lots of places like we live near Kansas City, like I was mentioning at the beginning. Within an hour of us, there's all kinds of places. Like Omaha is 2 hours north of us, Kansas City's an hour south of us. It's there's so many things that we can do within a gas tank of our house
Mhm,
that
mhm,
a lot of people don't think that way. A
mhm,
lot of people think, oh, traveling's so expensive. Get in your vehicle and just
mhm,
drive until you have, just drive a quarter tank of gas and
mhm,
see where you end up and just do
mhm.
things with your kids and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
I tell people that all the time that it's not as expensive as you think it is.
It can
There's
be expensive if you want it to be, but it can also be very inexpensive if you want it to be also.
the way we travel on the cheap is we like so for instance we're like 24 hours away from Orlando. um it's like 20 hours but 24 hours with gas stops and
Yeah.
everything. We
Hmm.
drive straight through.
Mm.
My wife and I take turns. We don't have a hotel in between.
Hmm.
Instead of eating at restaurants, we bring our food with us. And then
Hmm.
if like at Disney we had a suite that had a little kitchenette and we brought our breakfast and lunch and we ate at the hotel
Yeah.
and then we
Hmm.
just went out for dinner. And now
Hmm.
we do that everywhere and it saves
Hmm.
quite a bit of money. It saves like $100 a day at least.
Yeah. Yeah. It's easy to drop a lot of coin at restaurants when you're traveling, when you can make it on your own in this day and
Absolutely.
age, right? That's very wise, very smart.
Another
Very,
thing we don't do is we don't spend money on souvenirs.
oh, yes. Yeah, I mean, maybe a t-shirt perhaps, but I mean this at least with a t-shirt, you can wear it
Yeah.
regularly until you outgrow it. And even then it can become a memory that you can keep in your dresser drawer. I don't know. But
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
So there are like little bitty souvenirs that we buy, like refrigerator magnets. I'm really into refrigerator,
Okay.
but those are like $6,
Yeah. Yeah.
Shot glasses. I have a shot glass collection of
Okay.
places that we've went and it's like $5.
Hmm.
So we don't really spend a whole lot of money on trinkets and souvenirs when it
Hmm.
comes to the kids wanting to buy things. And of course, like when we went to Disney World, we were pretty upfront with them and be like, hey, we spent all the money that we had on this trip. There's no souvenir buying. We don't have money to get your little ears, you know.
Hmm. Hmm.
And the kids were okay with that.
Hmm.
What they wanted was snacks and stuff that were shaped like Mickey Mouse. And
Okay.
those were fairly inexpensive there.
Hmm.
And so we did those type of things. But the food, saving on the food and not not buying souvenirs. That's two of the big things that we are really able to cut down on to make things affordable.
Mhm. As a parent, also, I know that this may not work for everyone, and I understand that. However, international travel is a special gift if you can at all give that to your children, that I'll encourage people do. Because being able to experience another culture, a different language, the travel to the other country in itself is a journey and experience also. It's really a very high potent trip when you're going abroad. And I understand that not everyone can pull that off, and that's completely understandable and fine. However, if there's an opportunity to do that for parents with their kids, that's a tremendous gift that can also last a lifetime.
Absolutely. The European trips.
Yeah.
If you can take your kids to Europe,
Mm-hmm.
I would. Now, I've never been there. I've never left the United States, but it's
Mm-hmm.
on the
Mm-hmm.
bucket list. There's
Mm-hmm.
so the World War II tour, I guess, is I want to visit all the sites of World War II. I want to visit Poland. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
there's there is a former concentration camp there, Auschwitz, there in
Yes.
Poland. I
Mm-hmm.
want to visit that place. You know, there's all kinds of places in that area that I'd like to visit. And then Germany, I'd like to visit Germany, and then
Mm-hmm.
England. I'd
Mm-hmm.
like to do that whole tour. And
Wow.
that's one thing I've been like, I absolutely, I checked into flights already, like it's
Good.
not
Yeah.
that,
Mm-hmm.
it's not
Mm-hmm.
really all that bad considering the distance that you're going. I think just me and my wife, just checking into flights to Poland, it was like $2,000 for a two-way
Round trip.
tickets.
Yeah.
So
Round trip.
well, it wasn't bad at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I absolutely agree with you. If you could get the chance to take your kids out of the country to visit just a different culture,
Mm-hmm.
somewhere different than, because that's a thing that a lot of young people don't get to experience, is different
Yeah.
cultures.
Very
Not
special.
everybody thinks like we do here in the
Mm-hmm.
West,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
and not all cultures are the same as they are in the United States. Now,
Mm-hmm.
depending on where you live in the United States, if you live in places like New York, Chicago, LA, the chances are you're probably pretty cultured. But getting outside of those places, I think, aren't you in Texas?
Yes. In Dallas. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so your area is very cultured as well.
It is. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Dallas, Houston, all those big cities down in Texas.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's different cultures that we don't have, like where I live.
Mm-hmm.
It is a big melting pot near Kansas City, but where I live, it's just like it's not. It's American culture here.
Mm-hmm.
So getting outside and letting your kids understand that things aren't the same everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Like just
Mm-hmm.
because we live one way in this area, that doesn't mean the people over here live the same way or believe the same way. And these people over here might do something really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And this culture over here might be really neat.
Mm-hmm.
And to get those experiences, it really kind of help shape a
Mm-hmm.
person. And at the end of life, we all want to be able to say, man, I did a lot, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. And at the end of life, at least as we approach the end of life, as speaking as a parent, I always want to have a relationship with my children where I have the confidence, and this is how I feel today, Ricky. I have the confidence that when I'm 95 years old, that they still want to spend quality time with me.
Yeah.
And that's really probably possibly the best goal that I have in life. That's one of them for sure. And how
My
do you do
mom,
that? Well, you just continue to fertilize the relationship, regardless of how young or old your kids are, how young or old that you are. If I continue to fertilize the relationship with my children, I know that I'll be on that path.
right. Yeah, my mom passed away in 2015.
Mm-hmm.
And when she passed away, I wasn't ready to be an adult. Um, I of course, been living on my own since 17 years old. And gosh, that was 2002. So I've been on my own since 2002. My mom passed away in 2015. I was still borrowing money from her for gas sometimes, and so I wasn't really prepared for her to pass away. And one of the things that I say to my children is, I believe my job as a parent is to teach you how to live without me, but also for you to understand I love you and I want you here.
Hmm. Hmm.
But we all have to face that reality that we're not always going to be here forever. And I do want my children to be self-sufficient, and I want them to understand that one day I won't be here
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
they're going to have to do it alone.
Yeah.
And if I can prepare them for that, I think I've done my job pretty well.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Not much to add to that. You're
Well,
absolutely
Rick,
right.
it's been a great conversation, man. I've
Yeah.
I've I've had a great time, and this is just an off the cuff, first conversation. We didn't prepare for this. I did a little bit of research on you, and there's not really a whole lot of research to do on me. I'm just here. So,
Oh, yeah.
um, you know what? I'd like to talk to you again in the future when we got some like we got presidential elections coming up, and
Yes.
we've there are some questions that some uncertainty about the economy and some things that aren't doing so well. I'd like to have a conversation with you again surrounding some of that stuff.
Yeah. I'd love to have
Maybe
that.
get into some national politics a little bit, and
Sure.
because that touches on your job a lot,
Sure. Yeah.
as a
You
financial
bet.
advisor. So,
You bet.
with that, I'd like to thank you for being here. I'm going to, with your permission, I'd like to link your Facebook. Do you have a website that we could share?
Sure. It's salmeronfinancial.com. I'll be glad to
Awesome.
send that to you as well, but you can certainly submit that and share that with your crowd. If anyone wants to check me out, connect with me, they can certainly do that. I'm also on Instagram. Just search for my name, Rick Salmeron, as well as LinkedIn, those areas. So I appreciate
Awesome. We're going to link all that stuff in the description. It's been a great conversation, and I appreciate
it.
you working on a Saturday with me, man.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
been great.
I appreciate the
Awesome.
opportunity. Thanks for connecting.
No worries. Thank you, Rick. We'll see you later.